Think about the last time you felt a cold coming on. Did you immediately reach for a massive bottle of vitamin C? Or maybe you remembered your parents telling you not to go outside with wet hair? From the moment we're born, we are flooded with health advice passed down through generations, echoed by pop culture, and even reinforced by classic Hollywood movies. We treat these rules as absolute gospel. But what if some of the most famous medical facts you've believed your entire life are complete, utter fabrications? We aren't just talking about harmless old wives' tales here. We're talking about deeply embedded misconceptions that change how we treat injuries, how we look after our bodies, and how we view human biology. Some of these myths were born from misunderstood science, others from clever wartime propaganda, and a few are kept alive purely because they make great drama on television. Today, we are counting down the 10 medical myths that absolutely refuse to die. We will look at the real science, debunk the fiction, and reveal the surprising truths that your doctor wishes you actually knew. Get ready to question everything you think you know about your own body, because number one changes how you look at the human brain forever. Let's dive in. Myth 1. The carrot propaganda. Open your refrigerator right now, and there's a good chance you'll find a bag of carrots. For decades, kids have been told to finish their vegetables because carrots will give them perfect night vision. And while it's true that carrots contain beta-carotene, which our bodies convert into vitamin A to keep our eyes functional and healthy, they possess absolutely no magical properties that allow you to see in the pitch black. So, where did this incredibly specific medical rule come from? To find the answer, we have to travel back to the darkest days of World War II, during the 1940 Nazi Blitz of London. The British Royal Air Force suddenly started shooting down German bombers at night with astonishing, unprecedented accuracy. To keep their newest secret weapon hidden from enemy intelligence, a cutting-edge airborne interception radar system, the British Ministry of Information launched a massive nationwide public relations campaign. They plastered posters everywhere claiming that their ace pilots like John Cat's Eyes Cunningham possessed flawless night vision because they were fed a massive steady diet of carrots. The propaganda was so successful that it didn't just fool the German military. The British public began eating hordes of carrots to prepare for blackouts, and the myth quickly crossed the Atlantic to become an embedded fixture in global parenting. Carrots will absolutely keep your eyes healthy, but they won't let you see in the dark. That legendary health fact was actually just a highly successful military cover-up. Myth 2. The blue blood illusion. Look down at the inside of your wrists. If your skin is relatively pale, you'll see a web of distinct greenish-blue lines mapping out your veins. Because of this, millions of people grew up believing a very specific biological rule. Inside your body, oxygen-depleted blood rushing back to your heart is bright blue, and it only turns red the exact millisecond it gets cut open and exposed to the outside air. It makes perfect intuitive sense when you look at your arms, but biologically, it is completely false. Human blood is never, ever blue. Your blood is loaded with an iron-rich protein called hemoglobin, which is designed specifically to bind with oxygen. When hemoglobin is completely saturated with oxygen, like when it leaves your lungs, it turns a brilliant, bright crimson red. After it delivers that oxygen to your tissues and heads back toward the heart through your veins, the blood loses some oxygen and darkens significantly, shifting into a deep, dark maroon or brownish red. But it stays firmly on the red spectrum. So why do our veins look so distinctively blue through our skin? The culprit isn't biology, it's physics and the behavior of light wavelengths. When white light hits your skin, different color wavelengths penetrate to different depths. Red light has a long wavelength, meaning it travels relatively deeply into your tissue, where it gets absorbed by the dark red blood inside the veins. Blue light, however, has a much shorter wavelength. It can't penetrate very deeply at all. Instead, it scatters and bounces right off the tissue just above the vein, reflecting straight back into your eyes. Your brain processes this reflected blue light, looks at the dark shadow of the vein underneath, and creates the illusion of a blue tube. If you ever see someone bleeding blue, you aren't looking at a human being. You're looking at a horseshoe crab or an octopus. Inside you, it's red all the way through. Myth 3. The knuckle-cracking conundrum. It's a sound that either brings intense physical relief or makes the people around you cringe. The sharp, distinct pop of cracking your knuckles. If you grew up doing this, you were almost certainly hit with a stern warning from a parent or teacher. Stop doing that, or you're going to give yourself arthritis when you're older. It sounds like a logical cautionary tale. After all, forcing your finger joints to make a loud snapping sound over and over again feels like it should be doing mechanical damage to your bones. But medically speaking, it doesn't cause arthritis at all. To understand why, we have to look at what is actually happening inside your hands. Your finger joints are surrounded by a capsule filled with a thick, lubricating fluid called synovial fluid. This fluid acts like WD-40 for your bones, reducing friction so your fingers can move smoothly. When you pull or bend your finger to crack a knuckle, you are expanding the space between those joints. This sudden expansion creates a drop in pressure inside the joint capsule, causing the gases dissolved in the synovial fluid to rapidly coalesce into a tiny bubble. The loud pop you hear is simply that bubble forming and collapsing. Once it pops, it takes about 20 minutes for the gas to dissolve back into the fluid, which is why you can't immediately re-crack the same joint. But you don't have to just take the physics for it. We have the ultimate real-world proof thanks to an incredibly dedicated California doctor named Donald Unger. Tired of his mother telling him to stop cracking his knuckles, Dr. Unger decided to launch a lifelong, one-man scientific study. For over 50 consecutive years, he cracked the knuckles of his left hand at least twice a day, while completely leaving his right hand alone as a control group. By the end of the half-century experiment, he examined both of his hands for any signs of disease. The result? There was absolutely no difference between his hands, and neither showed even a trace of arthritis. His dedication to proving his mother wrong was so thorough, it actually won him an Ig Nobel Prize in 2009. While cracking your knuckles excessively might occasionally lead to temporary hand swelling or a slightly weakened grip strength, if done violently, it will not destroy your joints. Myth 4. The Flatline Defibrillator. Delusion. We've all seen this exact scene in a medical drama or action movie. A patient is lying on a hospital bed, the heart monitor is making a frantic, continuous beep, and the screen shows a completely flat green line. The doctor yells, "He's flatlining!" They grab the defibrillator paddles, yell, "Clear!" and shock the patient's chest. The body jolts, the heart miraculously restarts, and the hero lives to see another day. It is one of the most intense, suspenseful cliches in cinema history. It's also completely biologically impossible. You cannot shock a flatlined heart back to life. To understand why, you have to look at what a defibrillator actually does. The human heart relies on its own internal electrical grid to tell the muscles when to pump blood. When a patient's heart monitor shows a flatline, a state medically known as a systole, it means there is absolutely no electrical activity left in the heart. The battery is completely dead. A defibrillator is not a jump starter. It doesn't generate an electrical current to create a heartbeat out of nothing. Instead, a defibrillator acts more like a giant reset button. When a heart goes into cardiac arrest, it often enters a chaotic, erratic state called ventricular fibrillation, where the heart muscles are twitching randomly and failing to pump blood. The electrical signals are firing wildly out of order. In that specific scenario, sending a massive, synchronized electrical shock through the chest completely freezes the heart's chaotic electrical grid for a split second. The goal is to stun the heart into total silence so that its natural pacemaker can wake back up and establish a normal, steady rhythm. If you send that massive electrical shock into a heart that is already flatlined, you aren't resetting anything. You are simply causing further damage to a heart muscle that has already run out of energy. When a patient truly flatlines in a real hospital, doctors don't reach for the paddles. Instead, they immediately perform high-quality CPR to manually pump blood to the brain. And they inject medications like epinephrine to try and coax the heart's natural electrical grid back online. Hollywood loves the drama of the shock paddles, but in real life, a flatline requires a completely different battle. Myth 5. The post-mortem growth myth. If you've ever watched a true crime documentary or read a gothic horror novel, you've probably heard this chilling detail. Even after a person takes their final breath and passes away, certain parts of the human body keep growing. Specifically, the hair and the fingernails. Stories often describe hair growing inches longer inside a coffin, or fingernails curling over weeks after burial. It sounds like a dark, fascinating testament to the resilience of human cells. But metabolically, it is an absolute physical impossibility. For hair or fingernails to grow even a fraction of a millimeter, the body requires a continuous, aggressive supply of energy. Specifically, the biological engine requires a steady influx of glucose, the sugar our cells use for fuel, and oxygen, which is transported by pumping blood. The moment the heart stops beating and the oxygen supply is cut off, glucose production grinds to a permanent halt. Without energy, cellular division stops entirely, meaning new hair and nail tissue cannot be manufactured. So, why did gravediggers, historical coroners, and family members swear for centuries that they saw hair and nails getting longer after death? The answer comes down to a deceptively simple process: dehydration. When a human body dies, it immediately begins to lose moisture. As the water evaporates, the skin begins to dry out, contract, and shrink significantly. As the skin on the fingers pulls back and recedes toward the hand, it exposes the sections of the fingernails that were previously hidden beneath the cuticle. This makes the nails look like they suddenly grew longer overnight, when in reality, the skin just moved backward. The exact same thing happens on the scalp and face. As the skin dries and shrinks, it pulls back toward the skull. This causes the hair follicles to protrude more prominently and forces individual strands of hair to stand up, making a deceased person's hair appear longer or making a clean-shaven face look like it grew fresh stubble. It is a remarkably convincing optical illusion created by a shrinking body, but nothing is actually growing. Once the switch goes off, the factory closes for good. Myth 6. The 10% brain fallacy. It is one of the most inspiring and seductive ideas in pop culture. The claim that human beings only use a measly 10% of their brains. Hollywood absolutely loves this concept. Movies like Limitless or Lucy are built entirely around the premise that if we could just find a special pill or unlock the hidden 90% of our grey matter, we could instantly memorize entire libraries, speak every language fluently, or even develop telekinetic powers. It's an incredible story that makes us feel like we all have untapped superpowers waiting to be unleashed. But neurologically, it is a complete and utter fiction. You use virtually all of your brain every single day. From an evolutionary standpoint, the 10% myth makes absolutely no sense. Your brain is a massive energy hog. While it only accounts for about 2% of your total body weight, it consumes a staggering 20% of your body's daily energy and oxygen. If 90% of this massive, resource-heavy organ sat around doing absolutely nothing, natural selection would have weeded out those useless, energy-draining sections millions of years ago to save our ancestors from starving. But we don't have to guess based on evolution. Modern medical imaging gives us direct proof. Using technologies like functional MRI and PET scans, neuroscientists can watch the human brain light up in real time. What these scans reveal is that even during incredibly simple tasks, like making a cup of coffee, listening to music, or just blinking, almost every single region of the brain shows activity. Even when you are deep asleep, your brain is humming with electrical impulses, managing your dreams, organizing memories, and regulating vital functions like breathing and digestion. There are no quiet, abandoned warehouses in your skull waiting for a key. So, where did this myth actually come from? It likely started in the late 1800s and early 1900s, when early brain researchers discovered that only a small percentage of brain cells are neurons firing active signals, while the rest are glial cells, which act as a support system to protect and feed those neurons. Early writers misunderstood this, assuming the support cells were just unused space. The truth is, your brain is already unlocked and running at full capacity. If you want to get smarter, you don't need to find hidden percentages. You just have to keep training the brilliant 100% you are already using. Myth 7. The frozen head fallacy. We've all heard it on a chilly morning. Put a hat on or you're going to catch a cold. You lose 80% of your body heat through your head. It sounds entirely scientific. If you go outside in the winter without a beanie, your head quickly feels freezing, so it makes intuitive sense that heat must be violently escaping from the top of your skull. Because of this, generations of parents have bundled their kids up like astronauts before letting them step outside. But physically and biologically, this rule is a total miscalculation. You do not lose a disproportionate amount of heat through your head. The true physics of heat loss is incredibly straightforward. You lose heat from whatever part of your body is left completely uncovered. If you go outside in the dead of winter wearing a heavy coat, thick pants, insulated boots and gloves, but you leave your head completely bare, then yes, a massive percentage of your body heat will escape from your head. But that's not because the head has special heat venting properties. It's simply because your head is the only exit door you left open. If you ran an experiment where you went outside completely naked except for a thick winter ski mask, you would lose almost all of your body heat from your torso and limbs, not your head. In reality, your head only accounts for about 7 to 10% of your body's total surface area, and it loses heat at roughly the exact same rate per square inch as any other patch of skin on your body. So where did this incredibly specific 80% statistic actually come from? The myth traces back to a flawed military survival study conducted by the United States military in the 1950s. Researchers put soldiers in survival suits and exposed them to sub-zero Arctic temperatures to measure their heat loss. However, the soldiers were dressed in state-of-the-art, heavily insulated Arctic uniforms that covered them completely from the neck down, but they were given absolutely nothing to cover their heads. When the researchers measured the heat escaping from the soldiers' bodies, they noted that the vast majority of it was rushing out of their bare heads. Over the years, pop culture completely stripped away the context of that experiment, transforming it into a universal fact that your head is a biological chimney. Wear a hat to stay comfortable, absolutely, but don't worry about it being an emergency release valve for 80% of your warmth. Myth 8. The sugar rush illusion. We have all seen it happen. A group of kids goes to a birthday party, they eat a mountain of cake, drink sodas, devour candy, and within 30 minutes they are screaming, running in circles, and bouncing off the walls. Parents watch the chaos unfold, sigh heavily, and blame the exact same culprit: the sugar rush. It is an accepted law of parenting that pouring sugar into a child acts like pouring nitrous oxide into a race car engine. It causes instant, uncontrollable hyperactivity. But if you look at decades of rigorous double-blind nutritional studies, you find a shocking reality. Sugar does not cause hyperactivity in children. At all. This isn't just a minor theory. Scientists have tested this extensively. In a landmark study published in the New England Journal of Medicine, researchers tracked children who were supposedly highly sensitive to sugar. They put the families on strict diets where all artificial sweeteners and sugars were tightly controlled. Some days the kids got sugar, other days they got an artificial substitute like aspartame. Neither the children, the parents, nor the researchers knew who was getting what on any given day. The result? The sugar had absolutely no measurable effect on the children's behavior, cognitive performance, or attention spans. So why do kids act completely wild at birthday parties? The answer is a mix of environmental excitement and parental psychology. First, think about the environment where kids consume high amounts of sugar. Birthday parties, amusement parks, and holidays. These are inherently high-energy, exciting events where kids are encouraged to run around and play with their friends. They aren't hyper because of the cake. They're hyper because they are at a party. Second, the sugar rush is largely an illusion happening inside the parents' minds. In another brilliant study, researchers told a group of mothers that their sons had just been given a massive dose of sugar, while another group was told their sons got a placebo. In reality, all the children received the sugar-free placebo. When asked to rate their children's behavior, the mothers who believed their kids ate sugar rated them as significantly more hyperactive. They even physically altered how they interacted with their sons, hovering closer and checking on them more frequently, purely based on their own psychological expectations. The next time your kids go wild after a slice of cake, don't blame the glucose. They're just having fun, and your brain is doing the rest of the math. Myth No. 9. The snakebite suction disaster. Picture this. You're hiking deep in the wilderness, miles from civilization, when suddenly a rattlesnake strikes from the brush, sinking its fangs into your leg. As the panic sets in, you remember the classic survival advice echoed in dozens of movies. You need to cut a small X over the puncture wounds and physically suck the venom out with your mouth before it can travel to your heart. It feels intuitive, heroic, and incredibly urgent. But medically speaking, trying to suck out snake venom is an absolute disaster that will make the injury significantly worse. The idea behind this myth is that snake venom sits in a neat, localized puddle right beneath the skin for a while, allowing you to easily extract it like water from a straw. But in reality, snake fangs act like highly advanced hypodermic needles. They inject venom deep into your subcutaneous tissue under high pressure, where it immediately binds to your cells and enters your lymphatic system. It spreads far too quickly for any human jaw or suction device to catch up. In fact, multiple clinical studies have shown that using commercial snakebite suction kits or human suction extracts less than 2% of the venom, a completely negligible amount that won't change the medical outcome. Worse yet, the act of trying to suck the venom out causes severe additional damage. When you introduce human saliva, which is absolutely teeming with bacteria, into a deep, open wound already compromised by tissue-destroying venom, you dramatically increase the risk of a massive, localized infection. Furthermore, if you use your mouth, you risk absorbing that highly toxic venom directly through any micro-cuts, bleeding gums, or sores inside your own mouth, turning one medical emergency into two. So what should you actually do if a snake bites you? Forget the knives, forget the suction, and forget the tight tourniquets that cut off blood flow and led to amputations. Modern emergency medicine has a very simple rule for snake bites. The best first aid tool is your car keys. Your goals are to stay as calm as possible to keep your heart rate low, keep the bitten limb immobilized at or slightly below heart level, and get to the nearest hospital as fast as humanly possible to receive the only thing that actually works: anti-venom. Hollywood's favorite survival trick is a fast track to severe tissue damage. Myth 10. The 8-glass hydration hoax. It is the golden rule of modern wellness, repeated by fitness influencers, doctors, and water bottle manufacturers alike. If you want healthy skin, high energy, and functioning organs, you must drink at least 8 8-ounce glasses of water every single day. That's a whopping 64 ounces of pure water. Millions of people carry around massive, gallon-sized jugs, tracking their sips like a full-time job, feeling immense guilt if they don't hit their daily target. But if you look through medical literature for the rigorous scientific study that proved this specific 8x8 rule is necessary for survival, you won't find one. It doesn't exist. The rule is a complete mathematical misunderstanding. The myth most likely traces back to a single, misinterpreted recommendation from the Food and Nutrition Board in 1945. They stated that an average adult needs about 2.5 litres of water a day. But everyone completely ignored the very next sentence in their report, which noted that the vast majority of this required fluid is already contained in the prepared foods we eat every single day. You don't need to get all your hydration exclusively from a clear water glass. Think about what you eat. Fruits like watermelons and strawberries are over 90% water. Vegetables like cucumbers and spinach are packed with moisture. Even meats, breads, and pastas contain significant amounts of water that your body extracts during digestion. Furthermore, popular culture has long claimed that beverages like coffee, tea, or soda don't count toward your hydration goals because the caffeine acts as a diuretic that dehydrates you. But modern sports medicine has soundly debunked this. While caffeine does have a mild diuretic effect, The sheer volume of water in a standard cup of coffee or tea far outweighs the amount of fluid it causes you to lose. It still results in a net gain of hydration for your body. Your body is already equipped with one of the most highly evolved, mathematically precise survival mechanisms on the planet to tell you exactly when you need fluid: the sensation of thirst. You don't need to count glasses or force-feed yourself water when you aren't thirsty. Unless you are working out intensely in extreme heat or suffering from specific medical conditions, simply drinking when your body asks you to is more than enough to keep you perfectly hydrated. It is truly incredible how a mix of wartime propaganda, cinematic drama, and simple misunderstandings can morph into universal medical truths that we pass down for generations. The human body is an absolute masterpiece of evolutionary engineering. But as we've seen today, how we think it works is often stranger than fiction. The next time someone tells you to bundle up so you don't catch a cold, or warns you about that chewing gum sitting in your stomach for 7 years, you'll know the actual science behind the story. If today's countdown smashed a few medical facts you've believed your entire life, do us a huge favor. Hit that like button right now and drop a comment below, letting us know which of these myths fooled you the longest. Your engagement helps the algorithm push this science out to more people. If you want to keep questioning the world around you and unlocking the truth behind everyday mysteries, make sure to click that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss an episode. Thank you so much for watching, and if you're ready to dive down another rabbit hole right now, click on one of the videos popping up on your screen right here to keep learning. Stay curious, stay healthy, and we will see you in the next video.